Hi, welcome to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Thanks for joining the conversation. Hello, Jean. Thank you so much for joining me on my podcast again.
It's good to see you, Sifu Mimi.
Oh my goodness.
I was just on your Facebook, and I'm an artist, and I saw the AI portrait that you did as a test, which was actually really good, except as far as I could tell, you don't have arms in it.
So I didn't do the AI art. Let's be really
Okay,
clear.
okay,
I do no art of any kind.
yeah.
Um, and the irony there is like one of my students, he does really interested in graphics and things like that. And my kids made a project for me for Christmas. And
Ah,
it was kind of a not a yearbook of sorts, but more of a like over the years book. And so they put together this thing where, they would ask each other all these questions like, what's your most memorable Sifu Mimi,
mm.
line, or when she yelled at you, or what do you recall from Lunar New Year? Like, so it's just kind of this really lovely compilation. And throughout the book, they've got real pictures and memories, but then they kind of storyboarded it and had a lot of these images in there from
Yeah.
the AI. I think it was just more for fun, but it's actually something I really wanted to talk to you about because, of course, you are a true legit artist in every sense of the word. But yeah, I mean, since you're kind of touching on it, that's really interesting that you're checking it out. But what are your thoughts on? Because I don't really understand it very well as in detail, but my understanding is you can take a photo
Yeah.
and insert it into this tool, but then you still have to manipulate, and it's not as simple as I guess they make it sound, or is it?
Yeah. I mean, it's okay. So, not a computer expert, but I mean, as far as I understand, it uses algorithmic learning, which means they don't explain to the computer how to do something. They just kind of give an indication what the goal is. They show what the start is, and it practices until it gets what it thinks is right. But it doesn't understand things like noses or arms or things like that. Which is so. If you go on Sifu Mimi's, uh, I think it's your Facebook page,
Sure.
you'll see this facially a very nice portrait of you that looks very much like you, wearing some cool kind of fantasy armor, pauldrons, shoulder armor, but there's no arm visible underneath the shoulder thing. There's just like there's no upper arm here. It's just
Ah.
shoulder armor with no arm on it underneath. And it's like one of the things I like about you is all the cool things you do with your whole body, including your arms and legs and stuff like that I can't do. And it's like if that was I miss that in the portrait. I miss your arms.
Oh, I love this. I love this. You know what? So ironically, we're recording now like on a Monday, and
Yeah.
tomorrow my podcast is coming out where I'm actually going to release a ton of the images that he made. And again, he's not an expert of any kind, but literally told me, some of these things takes 15 minutes to like 3 hours depending how much down the rabbit hole you want to go. And
Yeah.
I don't think they made it for anything other than fun and to
Oh,
just
no, no,
kind
no,
of
yeah.
share. But I would be very curious as to your feedback and constructive eye on all of that. But that's fascinating because I don't think I even noticed that.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of it's so lovely and stuff like that. Let me see. But, yeah, it's very much asking a very talented alien intelligence that doesn't understand what humans are to do a portrait of a human, and it does its
Ah.
best job, but it's gonna miss things. But honestly, a lot of humans do that too. So, here's a famous thing, like I mean, I love Rob Liefeld, but when he forgets to put something into a drawing, like, a low-tech character using a bow and arrow, and then he forgets to put in the string on the bow. I mean, people forget these things.
That is funny that you bring him up because of course he's very, people like to tease a lot about that,
Yeah.
right? About the hands and things like that. So it's really funny. And just because I've been around, I get to hear these things. But again, because I can barely draw a stick figure, I have like zero reference of being able to actually criticize. I can only know
Yeah.
that this is something I look at, I'm like, wow, this is really gorgeous, or wow, I
Oh,
don't really get it.
s
And that's what
yeah.
art is, right?
See, yeah, I mean, and this is why I defend Rob Liefeld as an artist, is that his job is not to draw things accurately, it's to draw things cool. And the worlds he draw don't necessarily make sense, they're just supposed to look really cool. So, you know, if he forgets to draw feet or something like that, or if he gets to draw a bowstring, I mean, as long as it still looks awesome, it's like asking a punk band to play in tune. That's not the point of a punk band.
Oh, okay. That is really kind and insightful. But I was curious as to your thoughts because I went ahead and put like a little bit of a provocative question, like, is this the
Uh-oh.
future of art, right? Up there,
Yeah.
just so people can kind of run with it. Because obviously to me, I think this is a little bit like the computer, right? Oh,
Yeah.
traditional animation is real. And if you're using a computer, it's not. And now we've accepted that CGI and computer animation is totally actually animation. You have to still know what to
Yeah.
do with the tools. Is AI like that to you, or do you see it as cheating, or what's your opinion?
I mean, in my head, it's exactly like the transition from drawing and painting to photography, where
Okay.
it's a tool people are going to use. And, you know, people get their Kodak Brownie Cub, you know, the first like mass produced, mass use camera, and they're going to do new photographs, and they're going to make a version of art using it, and they'll put in crazy prompts and stuff like that and whatever. And, you know, painting adapted, drawing adapted and stuff like that. And I may not be happy about people forgetting how to draw and stuff like that. But at some point, I think painting and drawing and things like that, in the same way that photography didn't kill it, it's going to keep on going on even after the advent of the camera and after the advent of AI. The job will change because like it used to be a very important job on scientific expeditions to have a very highly trained, realistic, fine artist along to record what the plants and the birds and all those type of things and the piece of landscape
Right.
look like. And now they just bring along a camera, and it's that's not what AI is good at doing. It's not good at accurately representing things. But when people need amusing portraits just for fun for like somebody's birthday party, and you know, they can they can just put up a big poster that an AI made of somebody. You know, it'll be a beautiful portrait of somebody. It may not have arms. It may have the three eyes because the computer doesn't understand the concept of eyes, but it will be an amusing portrait for a quick use for a party or something. So
Yeah, and I think the question was, and any real professional artist I've ever spoken to doesn't really feel that threatened, I guess is the word. But my understanding of any sort of AI, whether it's this art or whether it's, oh, we're going to get replaced because humans, is that the experts will still be experts, but maybe the really mediocre to low level people that would be working in an industry such are the
yeah,
ones that would be the first to kind of like lose their careers. I think another another thing people brought up was that it's kind of stealing someone's art because you put like in the style
it's
of Jean
yeah,
Ha, and I get to be, Hippolyta in the style of Jean Ha. And
yeah.
so do you feel
Well,
like it's theft or plagiarism, I guess, in a sense?
I mean, I'm not happy about the idea of like hiring a computer to replace a specific artist, especially. Um, but I mean, it's legally there's no problem with it. I mean, I know people are trying to do lawsuits on it, but plagiarizing someone's style is not something that's against law under current copyright law. And I would be happy if they changed it so that you could actually somehow trademark a style in a way that made sense, versus computer things like that, or having the internet scraped for your images to feed an AI or something like that. But it's currently
Yeah.
not against the law to do that. But I'm going to say this actually relates very much to your your main art. And of course, people call the martial arts,
Yes.
and they don't mean that in the same sense in the painter quite, but it really
Yes.
is. And the advent of things like mass-produced long-range rifles and artillery did not completely get rid of the need of people to learn physical martial arts. The bodily
Yeah.
martial arts, and there are you there are spiritual aspects of what it does to you mentally, physically, and spiritually of doing the martial arts yourself, learning how to do the things you do that I should be learning to do if I want to be a better person, because it makes you a better person.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with coloring and drawing. And I'm super happy when I see people uh, who are not trained artists just start doing like adult coloring books,
Yes. Yes.
because it's very much of like people learning Tai Chi or something like that. Of
Mhm.
you're going to be a better person after you start doing these coloring books. And if you move on from there to something a little more advanced than just doing the slow movements in the park, I mean, that'll make your life even better than that, and it's great. That's and I think there obviously AI cannot replace that of just the experience of doing that or of being gifted art by somebody who took the time to make some art for you, whether you paid them for it or not. And that's
Yeah.
also it's very special. I mean, no one, no parent is going to say, "Oh, look at this AI art my child ordered for me off of a free internet app. I'm putting it on the fridge and I'm so proud of it, and it shows me how much they love me." It's not going to be as good as a scratchy crayon drawing because the
Mm.
scratchy crayon drawing shows the spirit and it really expresses the love.
Oh my goodness. That is so well put. I almost be like, "All right, that's it, the end of the podcast," because I don't want to hear anything
Yeah.
else. It was so perfect. No, I love everything you just shared and kind of framed for me, right? And there's like
Yeah.
so many things I'm about to hit up. But the first one is the adult coloring book. Like I actually have really embraced that as kind of a form of, mental health, meditation,
Yeah.
and then of course I have to struggle with it because my OCD is like, "Oh, it's not good. I need to get it just right, and then it would make me
Yeah.
a so I have to kind of balance that, but it's actually been really helpful for even, like, my dad, who when
Oh,
we go on these trips all the time, and,
yeah.
um, long story short, he actually ended up getting COVID on one of the cruises, so
Oh,
we had to keep him contained in the room, and keeping my dad contained is like
oh,
trying to keep a ball of bouncing light contained, like, just and coloring was a lifesaver because it just allowed him to just be creative with and having to stay in a small space. And it was just, I love it. So I love that you brought up adult coloring. And I'm not sure I'll ever graduate past that into
yeah.
creating my own. Um, I do see the value though. And I love how you explained that the spirit of art is
Yeah.
not, captured in the same way. Like you said with the kids and what you put on the refrigerator, it makes so much sense, but it really makes a lot of sense because you can kinda see that difference, right? Like you said, as
Yeah.
an artist, you could tell there's arms missing and things like that, but you're right, if somebody really draws something for you and the intent, right? Because in martial arts, we
Yeah.
talk a lot about intent, movement with intent, and so if you don't have that intent, it does lose a huge piece of that, and I guess that this is what makes us human, right?
Yeah.
Is to have that connectivity, and then as a martial artist, the copyright thing is really fascinating because in our styles, everybody's styles, there are specific forms and sets.
Ah.
And that has been something for years and years and years. It's been very controversial. Like, well, we can't actually copyright the form sets because yoga had already established, like, okay, tree or warrior can't be copyright because that's just already out there and there's movement. And so, because I think a yoga instructor tried to do that very early on, and so in
Mhm.
the same way, kung fu forms or karate katas or anything like that can't be quote unquote copyright, but they're very specific to the
Yeah.
style and to the person. And like you said, so I feel your frustration there. Like it would be kind of nice if you could be protected as an artist for what you've done and the influence. To kind of devil's advocate that, a lot of people say, but people love fan art, right? Where you're literally doing something because of the artist and as an homage. And so what's the difference between an AI, in the style of Gene Ha piece than fan art? Do you take it the same way or is it perceived differently?
Oh, I mean, as you the more you start to appreciate a specific artist's art, you'll understand how they well, okay, I I don't know how I suspect this relates to, the martial arts, but I wouldn't be able to explain it. Maybe you can.
Yeah.
But in the visual arts, when you see someone, when you see a piece of art and the more you study an artist, you understand it's not just their style, it's their way of seeing the world expressed through style. That's when you become a real artist, when your art expresses who you are and how you see the world differently than other people. And you can look at a good piece of art by someone like Bill Sienkiewicz or Adam Hughes, or I'm going to say if because you're in Florida and it's set on a beachside town, if you read Cat Ley's Leyh's Thirsty Mermaids, which is a wonderful riff on the concepts of the Little Mermaid, Disney's Little Mermaid, and just
Yes.
taking it in a very wrong direction, which is very great. Um, but if you look at all of their arts, it shows you how they see the world. And the thing is, because the computer doesn't actually have a point of view, it's not going to be able to express those things. and also fan art can't necessarily very unless you're an exceptional artist. A fan art will not be able to express it. I recently was on eBay because I sold a sketch there just for auction, and I'm friends with Adam Hughes, a comic book artist, who is very, very. He's an excellent artist. He is an incredible artist. He's one of the. I've heard one person I consider one of the best artists in American comic arts describe him as. Don't tell him this, but he is the best. He is anyway. It was a drawing that said it was an original Adam Hughes drawing that had been inked by a professional inker, and I was looking at it, it's like the eyes are wrong. Adam Hughes knows how to draw eyes, and they draw eyes that are like this wide across from corner to corner, and the hair is just drawn wrong. Like the strokes look like they're trying to look like Adam Hughes hair strokes, but he doesn't understand how to draw hair. The cape is wrong, and Adam Hughes is like the person knew how to did folds of capes, but they didn't line up in a way where it made sense as a piece of fabric. And Adam Hughes, it's all these things were just the understanding was wrong. And I think they traced an Adam Hughes drawing and didn't understand it, or it was an inker who actually had an original drawing early in Adam's career who didn't care about the drawing underneath and just didn't ink it properly. But wow. The understanding was all off. And essentially the thing is, like, you can copy, if you're a mediocre artist, you can copy elements of the Gene Haas style, but you won't have the understanding to understand why I did things. You'll kind of get them off. Like, beginning artists always focus on where do I put the black line when they're doing a pencil drawing or an ink drawing. And that's not what I'm doing. I'm drawing white spaces and then putting it shading and outlines around the white spaces. And if you just copy how I draw the outlines around the white spaces, you're not going to worry about the white spaces, and it's going to be off. And it's like, so close, but that's not what I'm doing.
Okay, you just blew my mind about the white spaces, by the way. That makes, complete sense. And I think, though, this is the whole, back to, those capers where we're watching like art theft and forgeries. And this is why you need expert eyes, because like to lame viewers, we would maybe not be able to tell, right? Or if even, I think not even like expert level like you, but someone who reads comics a lot and really is like super like dedicated to, for example, Adam Hughes would be like, this doesn't look quite right, just because you've seen so much of it, right? So I don't even know that you have to be as expert as you are, but like it makes complete sense. Like the intention isn't there, the motivation, and everything you do has compounded, right? So all of your inspiration, all of the experience you have goes into how you now draw an arm, how you now draw hair and things like that, right? Like I'm sure, most artists in any sense usually look back at their first beginning years work and like not cringe, but go, oh, okay, I've come a long way, or I do things differently now. I would guess it's the same.
Yeah. I'm going to give an example. Like, something that showed me my understanding of martial arts wasn't what a good martial arts instructor does.
Yes.
A friend of mine, Patrick Kelly, who's a martial arts instructor and a physical education teacher at Indiana University, posted a video from a security camera of one guy in a parking garage backing up as five guys, one of whom had a pistol in the back of his pants, began coming at him. And the guy who's backing up is trying to defuse the fight. And finally, when he gets cornered, he does a high kick and gets the lead guy in the face. And then the guy who did the kick then turns around and runs. And Patrick Kelly's comment on this was like, I thought, oh, this is a kind of Dirty Harry fantasy type thing almost. And it's like, his note was, this is a parking garage. There's a cement floor. If you're going to hurt somebody and you're much more physically trained than the other person, and you do this type of kick, there's a pretty good chance that person will fall back, hit their head on the cement, and they can get brain damage. And you should be mindful, because you don't want to end up in a case where you cause someone permanent neurological damage, even if it's at the risk of, even if your life is risked. If you have another choice, don't do that. And it's like, that's his main concern in that situation. And it's like, wow, I did not guess how he's going to comment on that video.
Interesting. I love the video commentary because my husband and I, Oscar, were just talking about, we watched the documentary The Alpinist. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
ever seen it, or Free Solo. And these are like extreme climbers that go solo, no ropes, no whatever. And they like just do these crazy things. And there's videos where they say, oh, the Free Solo Alex, he now does commentary on movies like Mission Impossible, where
Oh,
Tom Cruise is like, they'll comment as experts, like, is this right in the movie? Or
yeah.
we've heard like other, Navy SEAL guys commenting on that. And so yeah, we were talking about even stunts, right? Like people commenting and having kind of that expert opinion. But it's always fascinating, like you said, what is the thought process and everything. And going back to copyright forms and seeing movement, like we as Walam practitioners can always tell when people have learned from a book, when people have
Uh,
learned from online, when people have maybe studied it once legitimately, but left for like over however many years. It really only takes a year for your kung fu to change and evolve and move away from what I consider the source. You can
yeah.
tell because it's kind of like pieces of the puzzle are missing. Like the sentence is there, but maybe like the prepositions are missing. Like there's something quite not right. It's very choppy. And
Yeah.
so I completely understand in terms of what you're saying with when you look at a piece of art, you can kind of tell if it's authentic
Yeah.
and if it's done by someone expert. So even if it's not a famous artist, you could look at something and go, wow, this person has studied, or they practiced at least, right? Because study isn't necessarily like degrees don't matter as much as maybe the practice of it, right? And yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that that thought process of like experts really weighing in on what you see online, because
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
lot online.
Yeah. And there's so many things. I mean, like in art, there's so many ways that we're trying to communicate to the viewer. We're trying to express ourselves. We're trying to express the characters themselves when we're drawing a comic book and their points of view. If we're really thinking everything through, and just like I mean, when you do movements in martial arts, there's all these things of like you're talking about it being choppy. Like you're thinking about the beauty of the movement. You're talking about uh, the effectiveness of it, the personal physical safety of the person doing themselves. Like I know from having done some ab exercises wrong, some side oblique exercises wrong for 2 years, it messed up my hips. And
Yep.
it's like, oh yeah, you need to worry about doing the movement right, because you keep on
Yeah.
practicing that for 2 years, it could be a permanent injury.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And my husband does strength training and fitness, and there's people who want to do like a million crunches and then they have lower back pain, and it just takes one wrong move over and over to become problematic. And
Yeah.
this is why we always recommend you have a trainer or a supervisor, like, a teacher, because that guidance isn't just that relationship, because that's a whole nother level, right? That relationship between an instructor and their student, but like, just make sure we're doing things correctly.
When I first got serious, at all serious about doing ab exercises beyond just doing crunches and sit-ups, uh, I made the mistake of not working my back. And it turned
Mm,
out I would end up with my abs so strong I'd get backaches. And it's like,
mm.
oh, I need to learn to do back exercises. And there's like days I could not walk
Oh
because
my
it's just like,
gosh,
my
Gene,
back is
call
going to
me
lump.
earlier next time.
My abs look good, but yeah, my back was weak.
Well, that's like we could rabbit hole all day on this, but that's like a different thing too. It's like aesthetic versus function. Like there's two different like methods of working out, and there's nothing wrong with either, right? Well, we all should work out to function properly, but I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with the aesthetic. It's just making sure that you balance out so that you don't have injuries. And in our martial arts, we very much look to my father as the goal. Like at 80s, we want to be climbing up and be able to do things, touching our toes, being able to have movement without pain. Like that's kind of my goal. I just want to wake up and not be in pain.
Yeah.
It's like it's a good day. It's a good day. But yeah, I was thinking also, when I was kind of prepping for your interview, and of course I told you I reached out shamefully, like it's been too long. Like literally, I think the last time you
Oh,
and I saw each other was pre-pandemic at SDCC, where I basically harassed you at your table and just like you let me use your table. You're like, "Hey, just put your stuff here. It's fine." Because I had a panel as well in
yeah.
that show, but you were so kind, and I'm like, I realized I don't think we've really had like a full conversation. I think we've emailed maybe some holiday hellos, but
Yeah.
it's been literally since 2019, because that was before the pandemic. That was like
Right.
the SDCC before the pandemic. I couldn't believe it's been so long.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're fine. Well, at least for me, especially, I'm still I still mask up in public and stuff like that because I have friends
Mhm.
who I don't want to who are going through cancer and stuff like that. And I don't want to
Yes,
get anything
yes.
to them. But yeah, I feel like this is the catch up time, and it's just like it's a lot of reunions happening all the time nowadays. So I'm very happy
Yeah.
about it, and I don't begrudge anybody not having been able to say hi to me for 1 or 2 or 3 years. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's really been a long time though. And I see that you are full force back at conventions. I looked at your schedule. I was like, wow, I'm really glad I caught you today because it looks like you're about to
Oh,
be on a full run of like almost weekly things, right?
oh, not quite. Well, like biweekly, yes. I'm going to a
Okay.
small library convention next weekend. So a small free library convention. Then I'm doing Mexico City, La Mole's Mexico City.
Wow.
Let me see. And then after that, I'm doing C2E2, and then I'm taking most of the summer off.
Okay.
So then I'll take a long break.
Right. Well, I mean, but like March, April seemed quite busy for you. And you've been kind of out and about. Are conventions, because like I said, the last one we were at was wild, the usual SDCC madness and people
Yeah.
everywhere. How have things been? Because I haven't been to another one. Um, and I've seen videos, I've talked to a few people, but how's that experience been for you?
Uh, I mean, as far as the fans and the attendees and the people having bring their kids and all that, it's really great that way. The
Yeah.
artists are back in Artist Alley. There is a change where the comics publishers have realized they don't necessarily have to do every convention, so they're
Mm,
not. The publishers aren't showing especially the biggest publishers aren't showing up as much at conventions, which is I
okay.
really miss being able to talk to editors because they is you just learn so much talking to people from
Oh,
when you're in the same industry, you talk to people working in different corners of it and meeting them face to
yeah.
face. They'll always teach you things that are just amazing.
Right, right, right. Um, I also kind of went down a rabbit hole seeing what Gene's been up to, and
Uh,
I one thing that really jumped out at me was that you're so gracious. One is I already know that because I got to know you, but that on one of your panels you'll literally like sketch people in the audience and jump off stage and give them these sketches and just be super interactive and the nice guy that you are, but it seems like you kind of have a lot of fun with these panels and being, out and being able to kind of share your artwork. Tell me a little bit
yeah.
about that.
Uh, well, one of the biggest, one of the most important classes I ever took in school was taking improv theater in high school. And one of the big concepts of this is, well, the most famous concept is yes and. If somebody does something, you then, when it's your turn, you then take it and then you don't negate what they did. You accept it, no matter how crazy or silly it seems, and keep on playing with it in the same direction and then hand it back to them. But part of the important concept to this is that you need to also, it's unstated usually, you need to give them space to say something you can yes and to. So part of the reason why I draw during convention panels is because I can yak on forever and rant, and it's to shut my mouth literally. It's to make sure I don't talk.
Keep yourself busy. But
Yeah,
I think the fans love it. Like, how cool is it to just literally get a live sketch from Gene Ha?
yeah. And I usually don't explain what I'm doing during the panel,
Yeah.
but I'll try to do different corners of the room, so that way people will see me coming by with a drawing that looks like them and hand it to somebody, and then each corner of the room will start to realize what I'm doing.
I love it. And how do you determine what you're gonna draw? Is it just looking out and
First, I look for somebody who's interesting looking nearby me, so usually in the front rows. Uh, and then here's the other trick: I try to look for somebody in a different part of the room who does not look like that person, because I don't want to draw the same person over and over again for various reasons, and to give
okay.
everyone a chance, and to not like, I mean, like literally the thing is, like a lot of cis hetero male guys. I mean, I could draw pretty girls all day, right? But I don't want to just draw pretty girls all day. I want to draw people who look like everything from the audience, get every type of corner of the room
Mm.
and every different types of people and faces. And also, it's fun drawing all the types of faces. And I like finding the beauty in everybody, the physical beauty. I mean, you can't catch it. I have no idea what these people are like, as people necessarily until I hand the drawing to them. But yeah, I like seeing what's interesting and empathetic and beautiful in all their faces,
Yeah.
and then trying to bring that on in a very simplified drawing.
I see. And this is just out of my curiosity. How long does it take you to do a drawing of like one human in the audience?
Oh, it's usually a headshot, like about this much. And I'm super fast faces. So it can probably run back and forth, probably 5-10 minutes or something like that.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'll still be talking a little bit on the panel and stuff when I have
Right.
something useful to say. But it creates a threshold where unless I have something useful to say, I'm not going to stop drawing.
I love it. I love it. I love the fact and so many artists are like this. Like I had Michael Lark on the show because we were talking and he was literally drawing while we were having the conversation in the podcast. And I'm like, how can you even focus? Maybe it was shady. I don't know. But to me, like I was one of those school students that had to be like quiet in a room to read my
Oh,
book, or even if I'm reading, I need everyone gone and I need it
yeah.
silent. I can't have distraction. I can't have the TV on or anything like that. So I find it
Oh.
fascinating that you can do something so creative in such a live audience and with so much going on.
Well, right now, okay, so like right now, I'm looking at a video of your face and watching your body language and everything you're saying and stuff like that. So I'm very focused on you. So I
Yeah.
would not be able to draw right now.
Okay.
But during a panel, or if I'm in a back when I took classroom classes and stuff like that, um, the verbal part of my brain kind of has a different attention span than the visual part of my brain. So if I just sat in a class and wrote notes, both those things are for me part of my verbal part of my brain, and my visual brain is just incredibly bored and want to do something. So, and again, this is kind of the shut me up thing. I would doodle on the side of the notes when there wasn't something that needed to be written down to keep that part of my brain entertained
Right.
until the next important point by the teacher or professor finally came up again. And then at the end of these classes, I would usually at least once during the semester, probably early on, I would take my notes to the instructor and say, I just want to show you the drawings I did, but also to show you I was paying attention and took notes on all the points you made. I'm not just doodling and ignoring you.
I love that you did that, that you actually showed the teacher to make sure they knew you weren't just doodling during their whole class.
Yeah. Yeah. And oftentimes I would draw the teacher.
Okay.
And it's kind of the predecessor of me drawing people during panels and stuff like that. Um,
Right.
and every time the teacher was charmed by the drawing, except once.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, leather jacket, biker jacket clad philosophy professor in college. And he was relatively young, pretty, and he knew a lot of the girls in class had crushes on him.
Okay. Okay.
And he gave a lecture on Rene Descartes, the I think therefore I am guy.
Okay.
Uh, and I did a portrait of him as Rene Descartes. And he did not like it because he did not look like cool leather biker jacket
Right.
clad guy.
Right.
And he began shaking. You could literally see his hands and his shoulders shaking and him getting ready to yell at me. And then his girlfriend walked up behind him, saw the drawing he was about to yell at me about, and said, "That's so cute." And you could see the short circuits going off in his brain as he's trying to figure out how to yell at me without like getting his girlfriend angry, and he couldn't figure it out.
Oh, she saved you.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I would have been in. He was not nice to me the rest of the semester. I'll tell
I
you
guess
that.
not. I guess not. Maybe you should wait till like the end of the semesters to have done that. But usually, like you said, it was a charming thing, so they thought that was great.
Yeah.
Oh my
Oh well,
gosh, I
yeah.
love that.
Also
I would
avoid.
love to see those notes.
Also avoid professors who are that much in love with themselves.
Basically, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Any narcissist type doesn't like anything, any impression anything is done of them, of course, because only
Yeah.
they know. But I'm guessing this started even way back. Like as a child, were you kind of a doodler and did
Oh
like
yeah.
without consciously like going, I'm doing this because XYZ, but I'm sure you had always been
Oh
making
yeah.
little
But
cartoon characters and whatnot.
though in grade school, I would be drawing instead of doing my classwork, as opposed to high school, where I finally figured out to do both at the same time.
Ah, okay. Well, I mean, that's pretty good that you figured that out even by high school.
Yeah.
Did your friends in school like commission you to draw me this and draw me that? Because that happened when I was in school. People who could draw, people would always be like, draw me Garfield or draw me this person or
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
yeah.
and then it got to the fourth grade when some of the kids began getting more interested in kids of the other gender and stuff like that, and some began dating. I did not date early, but those kids, yeah, one of them asked me like, "Can you draw me a naked cheerleader?" Is the classic story, which it always has the same ending, which of course is once you do that drawing for somebody and give it to them, they will then show it to all their friends, and then it gets passed around the class, and it gets caught by the teacher and then put inside the drawer, and then they have to have a little talk with the kids about like why you don't draw naked people in class.
Right. Oh my gosh. All right. And were you an entrepreneur? Did you charge for any of your art?
Oh no,
Oh, you're just nice.
no, I was, yeah. I mean, there's a thing I mean, it's very much true. Like the emotional engine that keeps me drawing
Mm,
isn't widespread fame, and it should be. And I like making a living, but it's not so much for the money. I'm I still drawing to entertain my friends,
mm.
and for the people I really like and the readers who like I they get me and I get them and stuff like that. When these people are happy and I make a piece of work that really speaks to them,
Yeah.
yeah, still being able to sit in class and entertain my friends with a drawing still makes me really happy.
Fantastic. And which is why I feel like when you don't get kind of tainted and thrown into the business side of things as an artist, it really helps keep your art pure and the joy of it is there
Yeah.
and it definitely shows. I have to bring up first of all, every time I talk to anyone that's worked with Kelly Sue, like, oh, I
Uh,
just gush over how much I adore and love her, like 1,000%.
oh,
And it must
um,
have been fantastic to work together.
yeah. I brought along visual aids, so
Yeah.
yeah. So I got to work on the second issue of Kelly Sue DeConnick's uh, Wonder Woman Historia: The Amazons. It's a
Yeah.
3-volume set that's now being collected into a collected graphic novel. This
Yeah.
one was mine.
Yes.
And if you viewers out there, if you look at this, you can see like Hippolyta, the future queen of the Amazons, her horse, which is wearing a cave bear skull.
Mm.
But if you look at it and squint at it, and especially if I hold it further away and let it get blurrier and blurrier, you'll see that there's a face hidden in the cover.
Oh, I have to ask you about all of these things because that happens throughout the book,
Yes.
the hidden faces. And I am one of those humans back in the 90s staring at the mall picture of the whatever does the optical illusion, and I could never see the picture. And I was like, I was so frustrated. Like, don't you see the sailboat? I was like, never could see the sailboat. But of course, in this book, I'm seeing all these beautiful images and the trees. And so you've done a fantastic job of that. I will
Uh,
admit though, I did not catch that on the cover.
yeah. Oh, I will say if you, there's a
Like I did
okay,
not know that.
if you read the afterword, I think
Yes.
did they have the afterword in this volume?
Yes.
Uh,
Well, where
there's
you talk
actually,
about the notes back and forth, yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And I can't remember if I had the cover image in there. Oh, I didn't include the cover image in there. So yeah, okay. Yeah, I have like a description of how I
Yes,
made
that I
made the
read, and
faces.
I'm like, "Oh, thank goodness I could see those things." Yeah, but I didn't catch the cover.
I should have included the cover among those images. I didn't do that.
That's okay. We're talking about it now, so our listeners' minds can be yet alone blown, and now I'm like, because I have it on my screen, I'm sitting here staring at it right now, and I'm like, "Let me lean way back to see, like,
Yeah.
what do I see? Can I see it?" That's fascinating, and yeah, so number 1 is, of course, congratulations on this. It's incredible and amazing, and, I talked to Phil Jimenez a few times already. He's a pal of mine as well now, and,
Oh,
I know that anyone who's worked with Kelly Sue on this particular project, it's been so mind bending and meaningful. And you picked up, volume 2, and it is gorgeous. And I love. I want to talk about this the images and the trees and the faces and everything. But what was it like to work with Kelly Sue? Was this the first collab you've done with her?
yes, and I I was invited to join the project by her husband, who wrote
Matt, yeah.
yeah, his, Matt Fraction. I was at a convention in Heroes Con, and I rode what's it called, a shuttle bus with him, and he recognized my face. I had never met him before, so I didn't recognize him.
Okay.
And then he's like, we had a conversation. Then he came up to me at breakfast the next day and said, "I'd like to see if you'd be interested in a project, not with me, but with my wife. She really likes your work." And it's like, oh, so, and then I started work, and the pandemic happened, and I still have never in person met Kelly Sue DeConnick,
Oh
but
my gosh.
she's a really good friend now. but so
Yes.
much like a pandemic online friend who
Oh my
I'm
God,
really
that's
excited to meet.
yes, yes, yes. Well, I love them both. And Matt and I, he's been on the show a bunch of times. And I was fortunate to go to Portland. I went to Rose City kind of before the pandemic. And I had gotten a chance to meet everybody in person because Greg Rucka and I became kind of besties as well through
Oh,
this whole pandemic thing. But they are all so dear to me. But I love that you met Matt. That makes complete sense that you met Matt on a shuttle bus.
yeah.
That tracks. Let me just say that tracks.
And it's sense because I'm looking at you right now and of what you do and who you are. All of a sudden, if I'm when I'm trying to figure out like a good way to describe Kelly Sudaconic, she is she is a teacher and she's a master.
Mhm.
She in the way of a good teacher, like the reason I came up with these, I've never done this trick before,
Yeah.
in a comic book. The reason I did is because she wrote in the script, uh, Hippolyta is walking through forest, and Artemis is with her, but she's not physically in the scene. And she didn't say how to do it. She just said, make sure Artemis is in the scene, but she's not there. And there's a lot of different ways you can interpret that. And it's like I'm playing with the idea. It was like I'd recently seen the movie Midsommar,
Oh, I haven't
in
seen
which so in it a woman is going through this kind of spiritual journey while dealing with a uh pre pre-Christian pagan cult in Sweden having
okay.
their midsummer festival, and she doesn't realize that they're this crazy cult when she first enters the town. And but anyway, the important part is that the in the background the director put faces in the trees.
Okay.
And my reaction when I saw this was, that's a clever idea, but in a film with a moving camera, it does not work as well as it should. And
Mm.
if you really worked a lot harder than they did, and they worked hard, you
Yeah.
could make it work in a film. But it's something that worked much more naturally in a comic book. And I just put that in my back pocket. And then the script came along. It's like, I know where I'm going to use that trick now.
Oh, love it. Yeah, it was and I loved the notes in the back where she really gives you the artistic freedom to come
Yeah.
up with that and present and just say, "Hey, good luck with that." In one way,
Yeah.
I mean, I would be daunting. I'm like, "No, I need to know exactly what you want." But for an artist, I would imagine it's really freeing and a lot more fun. But I
Yeah.
would be stressed out.
But yeah, I mean, when you give a project to somebody else that you're teaching or mentoring, I mean, I'm sure you often say, you're going to have to figure out this next step for yourself, but you have to figure out your own way to get to this goal. Start.
Mhm, mhm. Yes,
And
yes, yes.
you can't micromanage it.
Correct, correct. Yes.
Um,
Especially someone of your caliber. Like if you're talking to like a baby, person who doesn't know how to draw yet or whatever, but when you're talking to another master of their craft, then it's a sense of respect, of course. So that makes
oh
sense
yeah.
that she was so open to kind of and she sought you out basically was like, I really like what you do. Come on
Yeah.
board.
Yeah, it was the amount of trust she gave me was just immense.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things like that she did inside the thing. I think the other big one, I mean, this happened like every few pages. She would throw out a challenge there and say, "This is what we need to do in the story, and I want to see how you solve this problem." And or solve the storytelling problem that works, or solution. And in one scene, it's the goddess Hera, and
Mhm.
she's talking about the history of misogyny and injustice against women in the past, thousands of years in the past, leading up to the present day and into the future. And then she said she wanted to have this explosion, this release of rage and sorrow from Hera on a double page spread, but I have to somehow represent 3,000 years of injustice against women, use not using the methods from volume one, but also specifically using birds and feathers. And it's kind of like, it was a very short page of the script too for these 2 pages. It just said, I'm handing you this and I want to see what your solution is going to be, Gene. And it's like, that is an immense challenge. And also that is an awe-inspiring level of trust she put in me. And it's like, wow, I really respect that.
Mhm.
And I'm honored by how much just the amount of respect she gave me. And this is the solution I came up with.
Yeah.
Hold that up to
Yes.
the camera.
And it was
And
oh, so gorgeous.
yeah, and before I'd seen those pages, the script came in batches of pages. I just established in my volume, Hera's symbol is the golden ratio spiral, which is like the
Mhm.
snail shell spiral.
Okay.
And then I just did this golden ratio spiral of the feathers and the birds flying out. And the
Mm.
spaces formed by that, in between the feathers and the birds and the spiral, I did different scenes of kind of like the history of injustice against women. And also women, this is important. I didn't want to portray women merely as victims, also women rising up against injustice.
Mhm.
So there are the Dahomey Amazons,
Mhm.
which from the Woman King, they got represented that later. Over here is the original Spanish guerrilla, the guerrilla soldiers, the Spanish guerrillas fighting against Napoleon's invading army. I can't remember her name right now, but this is the the famous pirate queen from the South China
Mm.
Seas. Um, let me see. Oh, and this is Mary Wollstonecraft writing. It ends with one feather being handed as be used as a quill
To use
by
the
Mary
quill.
Wollstonecraft to write a vindication of the rights of women, which is considered like one of the first English language feminist document about
Mhm.
that women should have rights at all.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't difficult at all, Gene. I mean, you did it so easily. I mean, clearly it was simple because you nailed it. I think she gave you an A plus on that one.
So I
What
should
was
also,
her reaction?
oh, she loved it, but I mean, I should also emphasize she was not just handing off problems to me and then saying solve it. Also, she
Right.
would come up with like story ideas herself, whereas like
Yeah.
just wowing me on every page. And then
Yes.
every few pages, she would take a break and say, "Okay, and this one I'm going to hand to you. Let's see what you do with it."
Mhm.
So she was not slacking off. She was
Oh,
working
no,
hard.
no, no, and in no way would I ever imply that, but I just
Oh,
like I said, I
just for
love
people who
the
haven't,
yeah, who don't know her. Yeah.
yeah.
100%, like, the creative freedom one end, but also I think, just from talking to Phil, just how much even just, like, let's call and talk about this so that you can learn together too. Because once you brainstorm, I mean, that's why they call it brainstorming, right? That's where all the
Yeah.
ideas kinda happen and flow, and you get kinda back and forth, and I'm sure that happened along the way. Like you said, you were
Oh, yeah.
totally schooled on things, and then you were able to kinda share things, and it maybe sparked things for her to include. But yeah, I'm really curious, particularly about the spread you just shared and that word problem that she gave you, which is hilarious and amazing. How much because there's so much, right, of injustices against women to like decide what are you going to who are you going to pick, who are you going to choose? How long did it take you to research the different humans or was that something that she kind of helped as well with, hey, here are some
Oh,
people that I have thoughts on or
when she wrote the script, she didn't know I was going to put in the scenes from history into it.
yeah,
So there were no suggestions from her at all.
right, right,
Because
right.
and then I was just like, okay, I've got an idea, and then I drew up the rough composition. I figured out how many spaces there were going to be in it,
Okay.
and then I tried to think to myself, and this is supposed to span across the world, across history, and across time periods and places and people. So I had to figure out representatives from kind of every corner of the world and stuff like that. So like Nepal, southern China, there's pre-war the United States and pre-Civil War United States and just ancient Greece. I try to get everywhere I could and
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
try to get everything in there,
Yeah.
represent a little bit everywhere to say that there's no
Yeah.
place where like it's been perfect justice ever, for all time.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, and it's often I think it's often talked about that the writers, right, authors
Yeah,
are always the ones doing research, right? Like sitting and doing research, and then that
yeah.
maybe we don't consider or think about the fact that artists also have to do a lot of actual research for the
Yeah.
projects they work on. And something like this spread clearly shows that you don't just get to get a page and then draw it. Like that's just not
Oh,
how the process actually works.
yeah. I've definitely worked with writers who hand me giant piles of research, like also I'm forgetting his last name because I'm the worst person with names. James Robinson of
Mhm.
Starman. He hadn't set us. I drew a story for him set in early Victorian England during the time of Charles Dickens, and he was living in London at the time, and I was living inside of Bloomington, Indiana. So he sent
Okay.
me a FedEx package this thick of photocopies of reference that he could get to easily because it was local history about
Okay.
London at that time period. And there's even with a major university research library near me, he sent me stuff I would never have found. It was beautiful,
Right.
just like illustrations of herds of sheep being led through the middle of London because there was no refrigeration. So if you're gonna have meat there, you don't carry sides of meat through the streets. You carry you lead the sheep through the streets to a slaughterhouse near where they're going to be eating.
Oh, wow. Yes, things that you don't really think about.
No.
Wow, I love it. I love it. Um, is there because I just love all things Wonder Woman anyway. In terms of superheroes, I'm actually not like a huge reader of your standard superhero characters, but growing
Yeah.
up, Wonder Woman was very, very close to my heart and had the red boots as a 5-year-old. You know, I had the
Yeah.
lasso and I mean, just loved it. And this wow, this take on the Amazons and just her character and just like kind of what Kelly Sue's done with this has been really revelatory for me and just to kind of how I think about Amazons in general. And I know that she also had a very strong, because of course I spoke to her about it as well, thought on what Amazons meant to her. And what were your kind of thoughts before working on this and then maybe after, like on what Amazons are and just kind of like this whole concept because it's very, very different.
Yeah, one of the great things about it is that they pushed it in a when the first volume, Phil and Kelly Sue pushed it in a direction I wouldn't have done because uh, I always try to ground everything I draw, and I try to figure out like if somebody's wearing a costume, I in my head I kind of think to myself, at the end of the day, how did they take their costume off, drink some water or some coffee or something like that? How do they live as this character when they're their time off or they have to take a break. I mean, when they have to take a restroom break, how do they get off that if they have to go really fast or something? Um, and that is not the idea that when they designed the first 6 tribes of the Amazons in Volume 1, they didn't go for that, and they did these costumes where it was just like kind of impossible to actually live with. Like there's this character here, I forget her name right
Mhm.
now, but that tribe of the Amazons wear masks, and they never show in the comic. It's a point. We never show that tribe of Amazons ever with their masks off. And it's
Mm.
like, but how do they drink? How do they eat? That's not how I think. But
Yeah.
then, but they're talking for the then they bring a contrast later where they bring in the humans who become the Amazons as opposed to Amazons created by the goddesses as ex nihilo, out of nothing. And the human the from the human world Amazons are the ones where we really focus on their lived life in bodies and stuff like that, and the whole experience of like, how do you go to the restroom?
Yeah.
um in fact, in one of the
You're
first
so
appearances,
practical, Gene.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have gone in this direction, and it's this iconic kind of spiritual meaning of it, and the graphic meaning, getting across the idea to the readers of like the impact and the symbolic meaning of the Amazons before we get to the human lived lives of the 7th tribe of the Amazons. I wouldn't have gone in that direction, but I reading the stories like, oh, that has an effect in my head that could not have been achieved using Gene Ha methods.
Mm.
And it's amazing and it's powerful. And I've kind of compared it to the first volume to Margaret Atwood teaming up with Stanley Kubrick and fashion designer Alexander McQueen.
Yes, very Alexander McQueen, 100%.
Yeah, and also very Handmaid's Tale, the Robber
Yes,
Bride, all
Handmaid's
like,
Tale. Yes, yes.
yeah, it's there's like perfection to that first volume, which was not my job to replicate that. It was to do the next chapter and make a new different statement. But
Mhm.
oh god, the things they did in the first volume were just like, oh, again, things Gene Ha cannot achieve, and
Oh.
I should not be asked to achieve. And I'm glad they brought in Phil to do that first volume and make that statement.
But okay, so I'm just for my timelining, so did you see volume 1 before you started to work on volume 2? Like, was that or
Uh,
was it all kind of a little bit concurrent so you didn't have to have that in your head to be daunting?
it, uh, Phil had started like not I think not quite a year, but many months before I did. But
Okay.
it was like almost a year, like he started before me. But then he only finished up 3 months before me.
Right.
So he was working on his volume a lot longer than me,
Yeah.
being paid a page rate, not based per page, not per how much time you put in.
Yeah.
So his investment into this project, his dedication to it, is just insane. But also, I didn't see all the finished pages until after I finished mine,
Okay.
especially the colors.
Okay.
So there are certain things I did in my volume where if I'd seen the finished pages, I would have done it differently. Like there's like a
Okay.
really
For
obvious one.
example. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let me get an illustration of Hippolyta at the end of Phil's volume. And she's wearing
Hmm.
a red tunic and striped leggings.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll see that there's no color break lines between the stripes if
Okay.
you look very carefully. This is my drawing of that outfit. I didn't know what color it was.
Right.
And I kind of
I
missed out
thought
on
she
the
just
fact.
changed.
Yeah, I didn't actually notice. Yeah, I didn't notice that she was wearing leggings. I kind of forgot when I was drawing the character. So I gave her uh bare legs.
Oh, okay.
And it's kind of like, dang nabbit. But yeah, in the story, she changed her clothes and then
Yes.
changed back into it in volume 3 because
Ah, okay.
Nicola got to see most of the colored art and
Right.
like,
Nicola's like, okay, so now this is her warrior outfit that,
yeah,
we're alluding to for later.
yeah,
But I think there's something, I mean, and Kelly Sue obviously knows what she wants because she wasn't like, hey, I want you to match this so that it's the same or whatever.
no,
But I mean, I think also in your story, it's very specific to like you were talking about, like that human part where she's bringing in the humans and it's not like we are just goddesses that have been determined or whatever, but like, so I feel like what she's wearing is very like a little more grounded in that way versus
yeah,
very Alexander McQueen. Like
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna say it's almost like also is like there's a fun like this huge contrast between, and this is part of the point of I don't want to give away the ending to people who haven't finished it,
of course.
but there's part of this important part of the story is Hippolyta, who is fully human and raising herself up to be at the level of immortal characters like the Amazons, who are the first tribes of Amazons are essentially demigods.
Mm.
And Hippolyta is through personal will raising herself up to that level. But she starts off as human, and her viewpoint on the world is very different than a person who comes up from on high and then is brought to the human world.
Hmm.
And it's going to cause a little bit of conflict on how to get things done.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and it's very much about like you have your ideals, and then you have your life and the things you love and care about, and how you reconcile the two is always going to be in anyone's life incredibly painful.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Very well said. Very well said. Do you all get on a Zoom and then just talk about like, here's where we're at with Historia? Like, because I know they're all very separate and everything, but have you gotten to have like a what do you call it? A wrap party for Historia now that those 3 volumes are kind of out? And
Actually, I was kind of hoping we would have like a big in-person party at some convention, but it has not
yeah.
happened yet. It hasn't
Oh,
been scheduled yet because
okay. Well, I'm gonna ringleader this.
okay,
I'm gonna call Phil right now after this and be like, party time. He's always down for a good soiree, I think. So
okay, he is New York based, and I am for the first
not
time.
anymore. He's in P Town now. He's in Provincetown.
Oh, I did
Yes, he
not
moved.
know.
Yes, yes, he moved.
Okay, okay, I was gonna say I
I
didn't
don't
know
know
New
if I
York.
should be like telling the audience where Phil lives, but he's out in the Boston area now.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah. So he did move, but yeah, but Kelly Sue's also been super busy,
yeah,
with family and everything. So, but I think that would be really cool. I think you guys should all meet at Rose City in Portland, because I'm thinking of going to Portland selfishly.
oh, man,
September.
this may be changing my plans for September now. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, yeah. Actually, do you know if yeah, especially and it's
And
just for
Matt's
Kelly Sue,
there.
yeah, but also yeah for Matt and for Kelly Sue. I mean, yeah, maybe I should be doing Portland this year. I had not planned on it yet. And especially if Phil's going to go, it's going to be kind of
No,
irresistible. I
I
need to
don't
find out
know
if he's going.
that, but I'm gonna basically text him like, "Hey, I think you're gonna need to come to this. We're gonna have a Historia wrap party. I should probably loop Kelly Sue in on this idea as
Yeah,
well."
yeah. I believe Phil and I know I'm not a parent, and Phil I believe is not a parent. So I
So it's
mean, and
easier for you guys to
Yeah,
like,
Kelly Sue and Matt are both very good parents.
Yeah,
And
they are,
so
and their kids are amazing and just
yeah,
so grown up now, I can't believe, but yeah, that would
yeah,
be too much fun. So we'll talk
yeah.
about
So
this more off air. Let's plan this
okay.
out. But really quick, because I don't want to keep you all day, even though you told me off air, I don't have a quote unquote real job where I have to report to my boss at 1 o'clock or anything. But um what else are you working on? What else should readers be
Oh,
looking out for, picking up? I want to hear about all the things, and yeah, share.
oh man. I am working on a secret project. And I can't say too much about it. I will say
Okay.
it's with a well-known uh prose writer and young adult teen graphic novel writer and also adult graphic novel writer. I don't mean adult as in porn. I mean actually like sophisticated,
Right.
complex themes and stuff like that.
Mature. Yeah, got
Yeah.
it. Oh,
Yeah. And we're pitching it to publishers right now, and we've gotten some good feedback, but I don't know where it's going to land yet, and the
okay.
exact details how it's going to land. But that is my big thing, and I'm super excited about it. And I've been doing things like I've been upgrading my skills, so I am ready to draw this story the way it needs to be drawn.
Wow.
Uh, like I take,
Upgrading your skills. That's okay.
I'll just mention in some of the sample pages I did, there was a bicycle, and I had to draw the bicycle from different angles and different times over and over again. And it's not exactly like any bicycle I own. And I realized, okay, this is one of the reasons why I should learn 3D graphic software skills, so I can
Ooh.
build this bicycle in a 3D modeling soft in Blender, and then rotate in different ways. So I do not spend half my time working on this page just drawing one panel of a bicycle. It's so complex, and drawing it from unusual angles and figuring out how the geometry changes. Like, this is bending my brain. This is harder than drawing a Gothic cathedral.
Wow. Oh, wow. Okay. That is, I feel like you just gave me the Kelly Sue word puzzle where you're like, I'm working on with these people on this bicycle, on these things. And now all our listeners are like, what could it be? And they're gonna try to piece it together. Yeah, that's very exciting. We love the hints.
Oh, there's other
But we're
3D things in there
anxious.
where yeah, there's other 3D things in the story where like it would be useful having those skills, but I am good at drawing buildings. But also,
Yeah.
if I actually at some point, if I draw the same buildings over and over again enough, at that point I might actually build a 3D model of the building and be able to use that. I will trace it and redraw it in my style. I don't believe in just for my style dropping in artwork from a 3D software and
Ah,
stuff like
okay.
that. But it would be useful. Or
That'd be
taking
too
photos of real
AI
buildings
of
too.
you.
But
No, I'm just kidding.
and I promise you, every time the main character's shoulders and torso appear inside the comic book, you will see at least one arm.
I love it. I'm gonna make sure that my student is listening to this episode and be like, "Damn it, you need to redo this." And I demand an arm now because I really like the art that he did. And I'm like, now it's gonna bother me, and I'm gonna be like, "Sorry, you're gonna have to redo that. Put that back in the software." But he did mention something about hands and arms, like that's what sort of takes some time to do because sometimes they're not there. And now I understand what he meant by they're not there. I'm like, what do you mean they're not there? Doesn't make sense to me. Oh my gosh. And then just last thing is I know that you and I last time we spoke, which was a million years ago now, but we always talk about geeking out and like
Yeah.
what is your new thing that you've been geeking out over? Or is there something that you can share? I'm always looking for new fun things to either read or watch or listen to.
Oh man. I gotta say, I've been like so much of the nation. I've been watching The Last of Us on HBO. Um,
Okay.
but I'm going to bring up a different series I've also been watching that got a good amount of play, but I think hasn't gotten a lot of play among geeks. So
Okay.
Fleischman is in Trouble on Hulu,
Okay.
which is a it's about a couple where their marriage is breaking up. They live in New York City. The husband's a doctor. The mother is a high-powered theater agent who's started her own agency, and things start going bad. I'm just gonna I hope this doesn't give away too much of the plot. But if you were ever a fan of Mad Men and seen
Yes.
all the crap that Don Draper got away with,
Yes.
some of these things to a lesser extent, the modern day mother wife inside of this story does too.
Okay.
But women cannot get away with that stuff and not go unpunished the way Don Draper did,
Right.
and that's part of what happens in the story.
Okay. Yeah. You know what's a little annoying about Mad Men and Don Draper is I love the series. I could never stop watching it. And it's like he's still kind of like the hero in the film, even though everything he does is absolutely horrendous. And you just kind of somehow still kind of want him to get the ad account or to, end up okay. And well, by the end, you kind of got a little bit like, okay. Or,
Yeah.
he'll have like moments where they'll bring you back in because he made a good decision and that
Yeah.
somehow makes up for all the bad ones he made. But yeah, it's super it was super addictive. I
Oh yeah.
just
I
felt
mean,
like I had lung cancer by the end of Mad Men from all the smoking.
yeah. Oh yeah. The way January Jones's character at the end was just like, I have cancer. Okay, spoilers, but it's been several years. I
Yeah,
have cancer. I'm gonna smoke.
yeah.
Um.
I mean, but it's such a depiction of the era, right?
Oh
Where
yeah.
smoking is like everyone smokes. There's no reason we shouldn't smoke. But yeah, we will definitely post those film TV shows, and I'm always looking for more things because I'm actually rewatching again Battlestar Galactica. In our AI, the Cylons are coming for us kind of thing. It's just sometimes I just want to watch something I enjoyed and that maybe was a little bit mind blowing the first time, so I can catch new things. But I'm going
Yeah.
back through that.
I'm gonna say. I mean, this kind of brings up a thing where, like with The Last of Us and Battlestar Galactica, part of the point of something set in a world that's very different than ours
Yeah,
is to we bring back the lessons we learned from there and look at our own world differently, and that's the job
yeah,
of art, which is to make. I'm paraphrasing a 19th century writer called Samuel Johnson. Uh, it's to make the everyday magical and the magical everyday,
mm,
and it changes how you see the world if you experience great art.
yeah. I'm going to leave it at that with that fantastic quote. Thank you so much, Jean, for taking time to talk to me again.
Oh,
And now, I'm going to get an on-air, what's it called?
oh, can I just say one last
Commitment
thing?
for you to
Oh,
talk to me more
oh, sure,
often.
sure. Okay, I just want to say something to the people watching out there,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, it's interesting to me how like being friends with you has taught me about how the martial arts, even more so than I understood before, martial arts are arts, which means that thing I said about the job of art is to make the everyday magical and the magical every day.
Yeah.
That's the job of a good martial arts instructor. And it's not just so you can punch things, it's also so it changes how you see yourself and how you see the world.
Absolutely. You are just full of like perfect quotes. I'm going to make sure my team is getting all of these down so that we can have them. No, thank you for that. And also thank you for always just being so generous with your time, but also gracious, and you're always so complimentary in the very little that we communicate. I always feel so happy after I've spoken to you. So so thank you for that, and thank you for the compliments. But
Yeah.
now, like I said, on air commitment, you will come back and maybe we can talk a little more frequently because there's so much more I want to discuss with you. But once we start talking, I'm like, oh, we need to talk about that. Now we need to talk about this. So I get a little
Yeah.
tangented, but hopefully you'll come back.
Oh yes, definitely.
All right. Thank you so much, Jean. Have a good day.
You too.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Please subscribe and rate my podcast on your platform of choice and leave a review. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/SifuMimiChan to help keep this podcast going. Follow me and interact on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.